Well, Your Majesty, we are grateful for this night. We're grateful for your love. We're grateful for your purposes and your design. Lord of hosts, we ask you to be with us and to lead us and instruct us and teach us in the way we are to go and to guide us with your eye. You know how you want the conversation and the connections to flow. You know how you want your purposes to be executed, Lord. And we look forward to and entrust you with our spirit, our souls, and our bodies, Lord. Lead us in the path of the life everlasting. We ask these things in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. So I had originally, and Vera, I have no idea if I'm too loud or too soft, or if you can hear me. Cool. I had started with the intention of going in and dealing with the window of reconciliation because that starts today, and specifically how it ties to land. My intention tonight is to really lean into on the concept of what a window of reconciliation is, why we deal with these things, what reconciliation is, and why land matters, and what sort of things we do when we construct spirit blessings in general for believers, and how we apply these to the window of reconciliation, especially to land. For those of you that know, I like to do land work. I like to consult. I like to work with survivors. And I tend to do a whole lot of interaction with land. It's one of my things because I believe I am most strongly connected with the Holy Spirit of the three members of the Trinity. And as a result, I have the greatest connection with creation and dominion and community, less so, even though they're there. But I tend to really find my strength and my flex in the place of community, or in the place of creation, excuse me. So I'd like to start this by posing the question, reconciliation, what is it? And we go to 2 Corinthians 5, and we typically think of verse 17, this dynamic of the ministry of reconciliation, and I want to cover that, but I want to cover it in context. So I'm going to read 2 Corinthians 5:11 through 21 out of the ESV. Therefore, knowing the fear of the Lord, or the awe of the Lord, we persuade others. But what we are is known to God, and I hope it is known also to your conscience. We are not commending ourselves to you again, but giving you cause to boast about us, so that you may be able to answer those who boast about outward appearance and not about what is in the heart. For if we are beside ourselves, the NIV translates that as out of our minds, and you might also look at the phrases crazy, unstable, whacked. It is for God. So in other words, if we are crazy, if we're out of our minds, it is for Christ. It is for God. But if we are brought back to our right minds, it is for you. For the love of Christ controls us, and some translations render that as compels us, because we have concluded this, that one has died for all, and therefore all have died. Those of you that have just joined, if you could mute your mics, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback. And I understand. Welcome, by the way. Thank you for joining us. Very glad that you joined us. So we'll continue. For the love of Christ controls us or compels us, because we have concluded this, that one died for all, therefore all have died. And he died for all, that those who might live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who for their sake died and was raised. From now on, therefore, we regard no one according to the flesh. And that phrase, from now on, therefore, we regard no one according to the flesh. Translation, I do not get the right to regard someone as crazy or not worth my time simply because they present something I might not agree with. It behooves me to get to know who someone is, to know their fabric and what they are about, and to connect with them, or on some level after the Spirit, which is the level on which the Lord connects with us before I decide to reject them. So we don't connect with people according to the flesh, according to the natural, even according to the soulish things. Or does somebody's political party or denominational affiliation or theological persuasion or age or sex keep me from doing that? If these things keep me from doing that, from getting to know somebody, I might have a stronger issue than just trying to be a believer. There might be an issue that I need to deal with in order to get to know somebody after the Spirit, in order to press in. It's not just about a political affiliation or denominational affiliation or what somebody believes or what their age is. I tell you, if I judged based on any one of those solely, I would be safe, protected, walking in correct doctrine, and with zero friends, because I would very much be the kind of person nobody would want to hang out with, because I would be judging everybody. Even though we once regarded Christ according to the flesh, we regard him thus no longer. We need to know, and we have a need to know, the Messiah according to the Spirit, especially if, according to Romans 8 and 2 Corinthians 10, we are to be and we are to conduct ourselves as we are capable. We conduct ourselves kata pneuma, according to the Spirit. Why would I stay stuck in the natural when I can walk and be led by my Spirit? Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Better translation, if anyone is in Christ, behold, a new creation is. The old has passed away, behold, the new is come. All this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting to us the message of reconciliation. Reconciling, gang, reconciling the world to himself, the world, the cosmos, the created order. This includes people, animals, and land, I would contend. My job, regardless of what happens in the seventh bowl of God's wrath, when the entire world is burned up, is to do that which is considered practice for eternity. Reconciliation. My job is not to whine about what's coming and say, why bother? No. Please, guys, bother about it. Please, ladies, bother about it. We need to bother about what's happening. We need to bother about what this work with land actually is. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ. God making his appeal through us, we implore you on behalf of Christ to be reconciled with God. For our sake, he has made him to be sin, who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. This appeal and drive pushes the redemptive gift teacher to make his appeal one who is no longer the anointed of the Lord. Samuel, the redemptive gift of teacher, stayed up all night mourning the loss of the unanointed Saul and begging the Father to continue working with Saul and bringing him back to the Father. Yet the Father moved from reconciliation with Saul because he knew Saul's heart, after repeatedly striving with him and wrestling with him. There will be times when the God of all grace, who has called us to eternal glory in Christ, will move us from a stubborn situation because the people involved simply will not be reconciled to us or to him. God opposes the proud, gives grace to the humble. This is why we have to wrestle sometimes and ask the question, Lord, is this a reconciliation situation or an alienation situation? And yes, even with all of his mercy and grace, you have to come to the place where alienation is an option for someone who simply will not respond or who rejects what the Lord wants to do with them. And that can be a frustrating blockage. But the Lord did not call you to adrenal fatigue or burnout to prove you are holy. He called you to fields that are white and to harvest that which is ready to harvest. In those white fields, the yoke is easy and the burden is light. And when you partner with others and oscillate between work and rest on the Shabbat, whatever Shabbat means for you and the king, whatever the day of rest means for you and the king, then you will suffer less burnout. The Lord did not call anybody to just burn out. He called us to do the dance between hot and cold, between sun and bride. We avoid the lukewarmth, but there's times you need a cold, refreshing cup of cold water, and then there are times where you need a warm fire in the midst of a winter night. And it's discernment that tells us what we need for which situation. So sometimes we're hot and sometimes we're cold. And then in this mercy season, we have got to learn what it's like to walk in that dynamic of the seventh letter, the letter to the Laodiceans. I wish you were hot or cold. The Lord never corrected cold. He corrected growing cold. Matthew 24, those who grow cold, that's moving towards empathy and sloth and laziness. But this dynamic of being cold is refreshing, just like being hot provides warmth to others. And he didn't call you to sacrifice yourself to the point where your body creates the warmth for somebody else. He did not call you to gaslight yourself or destroy yourself simply so others could have warmth. We are wanting to extend everyone mercy and reconciliation, and God is trying to tell us to make determinations about various situations and to move us into situations that are productive so that our groaning will be more productive and not wasted on futile cases and burdens that are not ours. He did not call us to infinite cheek turning with zero discernment and zero consideration for our finite resources. He called us to lean in, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, to his infinite understanding and his infinite resources and his infinite tenderness and love. Now, next topic. Land matters. Land matters because it groans, first of all. What is it groaning for? It's groaning for our revealing as sons. As with humanity that groans in the case of creation, I would contend more often than not that the king wishes to reconcile the land to himself, especially given Romans 8. Before I jump into a reading of Romans 8, do we have any questions up to this point? Or any comments or thoughts? Seeing none, we will continue on. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. This is part of Romans 8. Now, let me say this, since I say it at least once every time I come to a son-bride dynamic. If men can be the bride of Christ, women can be called the sons of God. Congratulations, life is uncomfortable for everyone. And given there are not bridegrooms of Christ, well, you get the idea. For the creation was subjected to futility, continuing in Romans 8, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in pains of childbirth until now, and not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit. We groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. That's Romans 8, 19 through 23. And there's this dynamic where creation is groaning, and it's groaning for us to be revealed. It's groaning because when we are revealed, then we can bring his redemption and his reconciliation and his healing, 2 Chronicles 7:14, to the land. If my people who are called by my name will pray, will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin. And it doesn't say I will heal the people, it says I will heal the land. So the land is important. Even if it's going to be burned up at the end, if there's a seventh bowl of God's wrath, regardless of what your eschatological view is and everything is burned up, the Lord wants us to work with the land even still. The creation groans and does not realize it is groaning for what it most deeply yearns for, just like we groan with words that cannot be understood for something deeper than the deep magic. the quote from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We groan for the lion who danced the cosmos into existence, a cosmos free of the dissonance of the enemy. So also the land groans and does not realize why it groans, hence hurricanes, earthquakes, and other phenomena. So during this season, we are given a reconciliation, a kairos, a season, a fitting opportunity, a window or gate in time where preparation and earned authority, or at the very least the desire to earn authority, they meet an opportunity to earn authority and to get some increase. Further, land matters not just because it groans, but because God also purposefully placed certain people groups on certain chunks of land, and the land and the people resonate with one another. Dreaming Angelinos were made for that triple exhorter land called Southern California. Bostonians who call themselves massholes, I kid you not, they call themselves massholes, were made for the harbor of the Bay State of Massachusetts. And they are ideological, hot-headed, stubborn, opinionated, and right about everything. Hawaiians, on the other hand, were made for the tolerant, everything-goes mindset of that archipelago. Seriously, if you want a good snapshot of Hawaii Mercy meets Yale teacher religious spirit from New Haven, read James Michener's Hawaii. That will tell you all you need to know about the islands, and it's actually a really good novel. So the next passage, Acts 17:26 through 28. And he made one from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling places, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us. For in him we live and we move and we are. Or even as some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. I want to highlight something in this text because it actually says in the ESV there, we in him we live and move and have our being. But I use the word are to highlight something. We have our being, not we exist. The phrase not we exist. Exist is such a low bar of a term compared to having our being. There is something radically different between existing and being. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound potentially heretical, but I don't want you to stone me until I bring the tugboat to shore. God does not exist. Now that I've gotten your attention with that potentially heretical statement, let me explain what I mean. God does not merely exist. God is. God bees. B-E apostrophe S. In the words of Paul Tillich, about the only time you'll catch me agreeing with Paul Tillich, God is the ground of all being. A rock exists. But we do this work of being, which is existence plus life that acts upon reality. It is far beyond mere existence because we are made to impact reality with our very presence. We move in this mercy season beyond mere proofs of God's existence and an apologetic defense of the faith into allowing him to be and act through us, to execute his purposes in the earth and through us, and to bring all of creation back into alignment with his design for creation, meaning we are given authority not merely to exist like a bump on a log, but rather we are given authority so we can do something with it, so we can act with it, not so we can question our own place or worth or worthiness, but so we can take what we have been given and execute on it as best we can through the empowerment of the one who loves us and gave himself for us. So in my case, when I work with a survivor or the divided or a piece of land, I do my best not to assist them in beating themselves up. I work at being gentle and helping them back into a place where they will connect with the Lord. Land matters because the King places us there strategically, which means we help the land reconnect with the land's maker. We instruct and encourage the land to turn its face to Jesus and to look to Jesus as the life giver and not just us. We're stewards, but we are not owners. It does not matter if you are placed in a ruler city with a victim spirit like Washington, D.C., or an exhorter city with more per capita sexual perversion than any other in the nation like Hollywood, or a mercy season with out-of-control promiscuity like San Francisco, or Provincetown, or Joplin, Missouri, or a servant city that is ed up with premature death like Bakersfield was at one point, or a teacher city filled with the witchcraft and religion up to your eyeballs. The only question that matters in this point in this season, the one thing is, did Dad put you there in this season? If so, what is the assignment or the task? And what is your place and role? We do not go where it is comfortable. We go where it is dark and unpreserved, a place that is in need of salt and light, and into a place where the King wants to show us what we need to work on in this season so we can earn some authority and see some things transformed. This is the heart I take when I bless the Spirit during these windows. Right now on my chunk of land, I have to deal with a yanked piece of exhorter land because my county is exhorter, and I have to work through the junk that caused me to lose half my thyroid. I lost half my thyroid because the exhorter land was ganked, and the redemptive gift that parallels the thyroid gland is the gift of exhortation. Two more passages that are here that deal with the expression of the land. Psalm 96, 11 through 13. Let the heavens be glad, let the earth rejoice, let the sea roar and all that fills in it. Let the field exult and everything in it. Then all the trees of the forest shall sing for joy before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples in his faithfulness. The fields will exult. The earth, it is being exhorted to rejoice. The trees, well, it is said here they will sing for joy. The trees will sing. This is not metaphor. The trees actually do sing, and they can sing. And the Lord himself will make decisions about the earth. Shall not Ha-Shaphat Kol Haaretz, the judge of all the earth, not do right? Genesis 18. I want to pause there for a minute, and I would like to ask if anybody has any observations or thoughts up to this point. Anything that you want to ask, anything that you're curious about. Or any comments or observations for that matter.
It's LaVon. This is so deep. I'm going to definitely listen to this more than once. It's very, very good, and I'm very grateful to be here and to hear this. Yeah, even this is the second time I heard something about the exhorter and thyroid today. Earlier, and the other thing, I'm like, wow, because I have low thyroid. So I don't know. Just there's so much, David. I don't know where. I mean, I'm trying to take notes, but there's so much going that my notes are not very good. I don't think, but
sure.
I love the very end part about the trees singing because, yeah, I mean, if he knows every blade of grass on the earth, you know, it's just incredible.
And the blades of grass have voices, and the rocks have voices.
Yeah. Yeah, and the plants here, you know.
Yeah. You know, and some of us were made to work with the plants. Some of us were made to work with the trees. Some of us can hear the soil of the earth.
I love it.
Go ahead.
I just love that you said instruct the land to turn to the Lord. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we think about these things, and we think about, well, you know, we get this gospel that gets so narrow and truncated, and talks about preach the gospel to only the humans.
Yeah.
And in Mark, it says in the longer ending, Mark 16, it says, preach the gospel to every creature, basically all creation, the whole created order.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have to find where we work best in bringing creation to the place of reconciliation with the Father.
Mm.
And are we willing to bless the things that we are with? And
Mm-hmm.
ask the Lord, hey, where do I fit in this?
Yeah. I think when I've done land things, I never addressed the land. I just anointed oil on intersections and the highway, and just spoke the fire and the love and of the Lord. I really didn't speak to the land. So, and I think they were saying something like that earlier this morning too. So I haven't been doing I haven't been doing anything. So if and when I start doing that again, I will be doing it a different way. You know,
Sure.
speaking to the land, asking permission, and all of that. Um,
Absolutely.
from safety, number one, and for the honor it would give too. Definitely the honor, not just the land, the sky, even the horizon, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to say I'm not going to I shouldn't get too technical, because I just want to say this first before I say what I want to say. And that is, there were ads on the thing where, like, if you took a Kleenex and you blew your nose, and then you were like a monk or you were some kind of Tibet thing, you looked and you knew you killed germs. I remember that. Well, I killed a big black flying ant on my car, and I thought, do I let this thing live? No. I thought, well, it's not harming anything, but in the end, I did kill it. I'm like, if I'm down to the thing of not wanting to hurt a little ant, or well, that was a big black ant, actually, you know, but God got me questioning that even.
Well, and I think the question there, Levon, just in general, and we'll get back to the rest of what I had to say here.
Yeah.
Unless other people have stuff that they wanted to say or chime in or whatever the case, and please feel free to do so if you have something you want to say or a comment you want to leave or whatever the case. We have to ask the Lord, Lord, what do you want? Lord, do you have input? It's real, but it's a real basic question. And we affirm John 10:27, my sheep hear my voice and I know them and they follow me. And there are different ways the Lord speaks to us, but I am convinced that He's given and has set aside for each of us a capacity to hear and discern. And if we're even halfway attempting to walk with Him on some level, and I believe that most of us are, I mean, you guys wouldn't be here on a Saturday night just to listen to me talk about land, because I could fill up 3 hours talking about stuff like no sweat and not even blink or sweat. But you guys are here on a Saturday evening listening to me ramble on about land. Okay. But the bottom line is the Lord has treasures and purpose for each of us. He has a birthright for each of us. He has a purpose and a design and treasures for us to unpack. And each of us is made to be a leader in some level. And I'll be happy, next week, if this thing continues or whatever the case, to actually have that discussion on what it looks like to actually bless the Spirit and how I actually do that. So I'll be more than happy to get into this is what it looks like. And it'll be later, but most likely something around this time or whatever the case. But continue the discussion and say, hey, do you have something? And if you guys have questions that you think about throughout the week, please bring those. I would love to delve in with each of you guys and not just necessarily be the one to pop off with an hour and a half teaching, because I just want to make sure that you guys are okay and not falling asleep and not getting bored and, oh gosh, here goes the white male religious figure that's talking about stuff nonstop and not making way for people to actually speak or ask questions or pose things. I want to give you guys opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. So Does anybody else have something that they wanted to chime in with? If not, we will continue. The reason why I brought up Genesis 18, talking about the Lord judging the earth, the judge of all the earth, shall he not do right, is because Genesis 18 gives us an explicit reference to the land actually speaking. For those of you that don't remember what the reference is, it's the discussion between the Lord and Abraham about Sodom and Gomorrah when they're by the oak of Mamre. And the men actually appear in Abraham's camp, and then the two Malachim, the angels, go down to Sodom to evaluate what's going on. So, it says here, the men set out from there. Genesis 18:16 through about 25. And they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them and sent them on their way. And then the Lord said, and I imagine him saying this in kind of like an offhanded stage whisper or a quiet, like almost to himself that Abraham can kind of barely hear. Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Seeing that he shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him, for I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, probably in a stronger voice directly to Abraham, because of the distress cry of Sodom and Gomorrah for help and relief is great, and because the sin in that place is very grave, I will go down to see whether or not they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know. Now you'll notice that phrase, distress cry of Sodom and Gomorrah, was not in the translation of the text. Distress cry of Sodom and Gomorrah for help and relief. I actually put that in there because of how the Hebrew reads. The Hebrew actually there reads Sodom's distress. Sodom's outcry is literally what it says. It reads in the Hebrew outcry and then Sodom. So there's this syntax dynamic of we've got these two words, Sodom's outcry. What's crying out? Well, when you look at the way that word for outcry actually reads, then you will figure out what is actually crying out, because those people in Sodom are the people that are the perpetrators of the sin. They're not crying out. The victims are crying out. But I imagine something deeper is happening in Sodom. That word for outcry, per my Israeli friend in Massachusetts, her name is Yael, is the same word they use to call for the police for rescue. It is a distress cry. So literally, I believe what's going on there is the land is crying out to the Lord. And there are numerous places in Scripture where it talks about the land getting polluted and then the land vomiting out its inhabitants. And I think the land is crying out because it is literally sick to its stomach and saying, help me, Lord. So the men turned from there and went down to Sodom, but Abraham stood still before the Lord. And then Abraham, knowing the heartbeat of his king, drew near to this Lord that's about to pour out his wrath. He drew near, knowing the Lord's heart as the friend of God. And then he said, will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous. Will you sweep them away? Far be it for you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked. Abraham knows the heart of God here. There's no way he would come to somebody who's about to just pour out his wrath and sulfur and brimstone unless he knew his heart. So that the righteous fare as the wicked, far be that from you. Shall not ha-shafet kol haaretz do what is just? Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? The God who judges territories and nations here, not merely the red Adamah clay, but the Eretz, the geographic regions of horizontal places, the land that stretches out before him. One other dynamic, too. The Lord honors the glories of the nations in eternity, and the glory of those nations, the things pertaining to them, are not considered unclean. We talk about putting superpowers on ash heaps and things like that, but the Lord honors the glory of the nations. I want to read this passage here in Revelation. By its light, that is the New Jerusalem, will the nations walk. The light being the Lamb itself, because the Lamb was the lamp and he was the light. And the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it, and its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations. But nothing unclean will ever enter it, not anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. So when I bless it, I do not do it with my head. When I bless a chunk of land, the nation's glory is brought in. The glory and and honor of the nations themselves is brought into the holy city and remembered. The glory of the nation of Iran, the glory of the nation of China, the glory and the honor of the nation of America, and fill in the blank with every other nation, not just Israel. The glory and honor of the nation of Saudi Arabia, wherever you have a prejudice or some issue with a nation. You know, as a Jew, my heart cry is for the nation of Iran, not just for Israel. I have a deep heart for Iran and for Persia. And when it says every tribe and tongue will worship around the throne, there's got to be a Persian Iranian delegation. And there's glory and honor there to be had. There's something redemptive in each chunk of land. So when I bless, I don't do it with my head. When I bless somebody's spirit, my spirit gets involved, which is in my mind, which is in my brain, in the seat of dominion. But I also get involved with my heart and my emotions. I open my mouth and say what bubbles up from my spirit. And most of the time, there is a biblical text tied up into it that I can remember. But man, I don't make the arrow fly with my head. I make it fly with my heart. That was a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I don't make the arrow fly with my head. I make it fly with my heart. I don't do the stuff in my design and birthright because of what's in my head, although there is a contribution there. It flows from my heart, just like your design has got to flow from your heart. That way, when you do your work, you will do your finest work. You will do your finest work. So, with that, I would like to bless your spirits here. And for those that are not comfortable with this, you can just opt out. I'm just going to go ahead and lean in with a spirit blessing. So, beloved, I invite your spirit to be present forward. I am not your drill sergeant, therefore I am not going to call it to attention. That's just not my way. That's not how I do it. Spirit, I bless you to be present, whether you're far away or near, whether you're divided or integrated altogether. I bless you to be as near or as far away as you need to be. But I encourage you to listen. Listen to the word of El Shaddai. For God did not send his Son to the world to condemn the world, but that through him the world might be saved. Spirit, there's a place for the King where he yearns not just for the people in the world, but also the land itself. He doesn't want to condemn. It's not his heart to condemn. His Father's heart is to teach and to instruct and to show cause and effect. Spirit, he wants to do this with you. He wants to show you how deeply you are loved. So I bless you, Spirit, to receive a revelation of the not condemnation of the Lord. He does not condemn you. He does not condemn where you live. He doesn't condemn fill in the blank city that anybody else might condemn. He doesn't condemn Washington, D.C. He doesn't condemn San Francisco. He doesn't condemn Boston. He doesn't condemn Moscow. He doesn't condemn London. He doesn't condemn Beijing. But that through him, through the Son, the bridegroom, who romances the bride, they might come to know. So, Spirit, I bless you with that revelation. I bless you with a deep, deep revelation of what the Lord has for you in your place, in your season. I bless you to partner with the Lord in this season in working with the land and to hear what he is saying. Son, daughter, there's a portal over there. There's a structure over there. There's a Leviathan. There's a Nephilim. There are clowns, which is my term for demons. Not Arthur's. I don't call them critters because I think of animals as critters. I've heard of the enemy as clowns because he's a circus show and he deserves to be shut down at every step. He does not deserve honor and worship. I might respect the fact that he has some sort of authority or whatever the case, or, that sort of thing. But there are times when I don't have time for this. So I bless you to also not have time to glorify overly what the enemy is doing. I bless you to know the purposes of God for your land. I bless you to hear when the Lord is saying, check that structure over here, look over here, give a call to this person, put your heads together, devise a strategy. I bless you to know the strategies. I bless your toolbox to increase. I bless your toolbox of not condemnation, but love to increase. I bless your heart and your mind and the eyes of your heart, the eyes of your understanding to be opened and blessed. I bless you to know the King's love and the love he has for the land in this season. And I bless you to see the land move from negative numbers up to zero into positive numbers and grow. And I bless you as you encourage and coach the land. Be at peace, gang, full of the King's purposes. Be at peace, Spirit. Bless you with this revelation in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Shama. I would like to open the floor up now because this is me coming up on about 47 minutes. That's about all my mouth can handle nonstop. Well, if my throat were better, I probably could handle another couple hours, but I'd like to give some people the opportunity to chime in and speak and talk or whatever the case.
Okay, let's start. So I've read about these windows of reconciliation again and again, and yeah, I've always been a bit. I see the point, but I've never really done it myself. I'm much more interested in land myself now, for various reasons. One, very selfish, because the land where I'm living on, we're going to move, and I realized that I haven't been a good steward to this land where we live on. And we will move only like to the next street. And yeah, I started asking what that land needs and all kinds of land questions I have, but it's still not coming naturally to me. but I feel that I really want to start doing something about it.
There is, and I say this in response to your question because there's a number of ways that I could go there, but a real practical dynamic Arthur mentioned in the teaching. It's called When Your Call is Blocked, and it's the disc that deals with land. And let me pull up my iTunes because I believe I have. Where are you? When Your Call is Blocked. This is a teaching he did in March of 2016 in Toronto, Ontario, and the track is actually, it's a 5-minute track on the third disc, and it's called Land. And he actually covered a dynamic where he said, okay, you have a piece of land that's getting ready to get sold, and the piece of land, without us realizing what's happening, is panicking. It doesn't want to get sold. Yeah. And so as a result of it not wanting to get sold, it's not going to let go of whoever is the life giver on the land. If it perceives you to be a life giver, there have been times where land has actually shut down all attempts to sell it. And it has made itself look very unappealing to anybody who's not the current tenant or the current owner or whatever the case. And so what Arthur proposed is this dynamic of, I realize that you view me as a life giver. Figure out where you are with the land, if that is something that you want to do. And Vera, there is no condemnation here. I mean, we all start out somewhere, and this point right here is where I started my journey with the land. When I came back from Toronto, having heard Arthur say this back in 2016, I immediately got on the phone to my wife, who had lived 25 years in Springfield, Massachusetts, had never lived anywhere else, had never been south of the Mason-Dixon line, and was not interested in going south of the Mason-Dixon line. You know, a lot of us here in the South, we're a little bit crazy. You know how it is. And when you spend all of your life as a New England girl, it just manifests, you know? So, and I'm a native Floridian, so I get it. You know, we're a little bit different breed at times, you know, that's the way of it. But my recommendation is starting somewhere lightly, maybe gauging where you think the land is, blessing the land lightly and saying, okay, it's time to release me because I'm about to leave. So you part at least on moderately decent terms with the land, and you remind it, land, I am not the life giver. I was sent to be life giving, and regardless of what your track record was, your history with the land was, you know, you try to interact with it on some level. Maybe it will receive, maybe it won't. I have no idea. But when we interacted with and blessed the land and asked for the land to release us, within 3 weeks the house was sold, and my wife was no longer a resident of New England. And we had to move quickly because her house had gotten sold. And it was only by the grace of God we found the house that we found, the place to rent, and was able to move in a number of situations just very quickly. Like everything just flowed. So it may be a situation where, you know, there's very little that you pour in, but you've got the opportunity to move in something and maybe gauge and see how the land responds based on what happens. I don't know. I'm more than willing to have a couple of conversations with you, or a series of conversations with you, to kind of dig in and find out where you are, to work with you and coach if that's what you need. It is not a problem for me to do that. So I don't know if that helps you at all.
Can you hear me? This is Bethany, by the way.
So,
Can you guys hear me?
Bethany, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
It's kind of a little soft. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah. I've got headphones on because I'm actually walking some land right now as I'm listening. But I'm really glad you mentioned that album because that was one of my favorite albums that he's done. There was a lot on that album that I really liked, but that prayer that you were mentioning about releasing the life giver, that's something I've really been focusing on because there's so many people right now, I think, in the tribe that are getting ready to leave certain spots to go to new spots. And it's a bunch of different transitions. And so that's been on my heart a lot to pray that because the spot of land that I'm on now, I've been there for about 4 years and I can feel the panic start in the land that I'm stewarding. And so I'm just really glad you mentioned that.
Sure. Now, Bethany, is it just, where are you actually located?
I actually live in Alabama. I'm in Coleman, Alabama. Um, but I'm on my parents' land right now because they have about 7 acres or so on top of a river, and so they just retired, I think, last September. And so the land that I live on is about 20 minutes from here, and it's a tiny little house on a big plot of land, and there's lots of neighbors and things like that. But yeah, I am in good old Alabama.
Sure, sure. Wow. But yeah, I mean, that was this record, the album When Your Call Is Blocked was my first time anywhere with an SLG conference, and it was my first time traveling outside the United States, going north to America's Hat, Canada. You know, of course, we're Canada's pants, so go figure. But it was an outstanding trip, and it was during an election year, and the land here during 2016 was just so loud.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I drove north and I crossed over from New York and Niagara Falls into Ontario, like everything just went quiet.
Wow.
But that was it was a watershed moment for us, that whole teaching, and I was just I am floored as often as I see, you know, people jumping into the land work. This is like one of those little things that's real easy and real practical, and you really see results on some level. For at least I would imagine 90% of the people I've connected with overland, I say start here, see if you get results.
Yeah, when you talk about the land being loud, and then crossing over and then it just goes quiet, that's another phenomenon between my parents' property and then the one I'm on right now. And so a lot of times just the sound is just almost deafening, but there's other times when I'm there that it's not. And so struggling with that because how to balance that with, my authority, you know, as a tenant and then blessing it and calling it forth and seeing what it was when I first moved there to now. And, you know, I don't know. I don't have a lot of words that can describe, but
Sure.
you might know her, you know.
Oh yeah, when you do know and you know her, or you feel and you feel her. You do the esoteric thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're also in good company because a lot of us tend to do the feeler knower thing and can't always put words to it. The only reason I can put words to things is because I was forced to. You know, I was forced to look like an exhorter or a teacher or a prophet. You
Wow.
know, so and I'm a
I think
mercy.
embracing that part of my spirit is kind of the season that I'm in, and just allowing that person to be there because I shut it down for a long time because I'm highly creative in dance and motion and beauty and sound and art and all of those things. Um, it wasn't okay, growing up. It was
Sure.
to an extent, but yeah, just kind of unpacking all of that and languaging it, and I really can't. And when you did the spirit prayer, I mean, I was weeping on this little piece of land over here, but when you said that you want us to get to where we don't have time for it either, I was like, yes, 'cause ain't nobody got time for that.